My physical body shook literally in a way that I almost could not stop for 2 years when this began. And that's a part of the process that we all have to move through. But in order for us to have a successful graduation from 3D into 4D, where we are going to be interacting with extraterrestrial consciousness, it's really important to begin the process of preparing the human central nervous system for that, because a lot can go and it can take a lot longer than it needs to if it's done in other ways. For a lot of people to begin that process, people who wish to begin that process, and at that point, your chakras are going to begin to be worked with, beginning with the base chakra and your fight-flight system.
This is the Biba Frequency Podcast, and my name is Biba Logan. I'm based in Ireland, and today I'm talking to someone in the States, and this is a very special and unique individual. Her name is Casey Claar. Casey Claar is a very, very compassionate, caring, open, transparent, sensitive being. She's multidimensional and she has access to her multidimensionality. She is able to have out-of-body experiences at will, so OBEs. She's also a contactee. She's had her own encounters with ETs, spaceships, and all of that stuff. But she's so much more than her story. She has a remarkable story, and that's why I invited her on today. She has a gift that was unlocked within her in 2017. Starting in 2009, it took her years to develop and understand and comprehend. She has the ability to bridge the worlds between those that are in that world and us that are in this world. She's able to take images of these beings through her crystal. And I know some people love crystals and some people don't have any interest in crystals. This isn't any ordinary crystal work or taking photos of orbs and faces in orbs. These beings are communicating with her through these crystals, and she's able to take clear images. This is very real. This is first contact. This is eye-to-eye contact with these beings. She also does a service called rendering, where you can request a reading, and it's not so much as a reading where you get information. You just get to see the being that is connected to you. I've requested one of these, and I will inform you about that at a later date. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I know it's going to be beautiful. I'm very excited to experience this woman, because for me, contact has always been a beautiful thing. It's beautiful and mystical and mysterious and enigmatic, and it's star families coming together, and her images display another version of this narrative that we've been fed about ET contact. And always the same images, always the same story. She has a very different story with these images. So just sit back and enjoy. Open your mind. Don't try to fit this into your belief system. Step out of your belief system and absorb the truth of what's happening here today. Casey, thank you for your time and thank you for your work. Until next time. Casey Claar, welcome to the Biba Frequency Podcast.
Thank you, Biba. It's really good to finally see you in person.
I love the fact that online is the new in person, because it really is, isn't
it? It is. It's more than text. I get to see your beautiful face.
Casey, I actually wanted to invite you onto this podcast for a conversation with you, because when I saw your interview with Steve Neal on Breaking the Silence, I immediately wanted to reach out, but one thing came up and another thing came up. And then I saw you again, and then I saw you again and again and again. And I watched a lot of your conversations, and I knew I had to talk to you. I just knew I had to. And so when I reached out and you were available, I was very, very grateful for that. So thanks for coming on here today.
Thank you for having me. I've been enjoying your videos and your guests, and really appreciate so much channels like yours that introduce us to people we might not have ever heard of before, and bring on those that have been around for some time that seem to go missing for some time. So yeah, really been enjoying the people that you've been bringing on. And as I mentioned to you, some of those are connected to my own awakening.
So Casey, nobody, I've sent your Patreon images of what you do out to a lot of friends of mine. But in Ireland, no one's ever brought you to me. No one's ever said, because we share things all the time, right, in groups. But so you're very new to my groups. And I'm very excited about what you're offering because it's very close to my heart, what you're doing. Please share a little bit about, or share a lot about, what is going on with Casey Claar? What's she up to?
Oh, goodness. Well, she's leading the life of a spiritual student. That's basically what I am, somebody who came to walk the spiritual path. And the part that seems to be most interesting to people is at the juncture of 2009, when after decades of disciplines, I had a somewhat shocking spiritual awakening. And that awakening included what we know as the kundalini phenomena, the out-of-body experience, ET contact, and a skill that I discovered some years later in 2017, working with crystals, specifically as communication devices, which is an Atlantean era crystal technology that has gone missing from our planet since the end of Atlantis and is now newly returning to our planet.
That's very exciting.
Very exciting. So I'm very involved with all of that at the moment, and mostly focused on doing what I can to open myself to bring through information to our planet that is much needed to our planet at this time, because we are in a cycle of awakening, a collective awakening.
So I'm going to say something, and I hope I get to articulate myself well enough to express what I'm feeling, okay?
Okay.
You being you, and your abilities and your frequency and your delivery of contact to what's happening right now at this time in this realm it's so unique. And it's so pure, and it's so beautiful, and it's so majestic and magical. It's everything I want contact to be. Everything I want contact to be. So I was driving my car about a year ago, and I just remember being really angry. And I was angry that contact is happening and we're blending consciousnesses all together. It's happening. Contact is coming in, and there's this narrative that's, it's like this kind of narrative that we're all used to, and it's contaminating the environment and the magical communication that these beings are trying to bring in. It's kind of almost like it's overlaying a counterfeit version of contact. And I thought, what a awful thing to do to a whole civilization, to come in and sweep it with a blanket of lies, or just their version of what contact is. And I thought, we're at a pinnacle point as the earth evolves and as we all move forward to really blend with other beings from other dimensions and civilizations. And here we have to contend with this. And for those of us who have our own contact, someone like yourself and others, they understand it from a different angle. And many times people don't ever get to hear real contact. They get to hear a version of somebody else's contact. But you come in, suddenly you come in, and you have taken something from their world into our world. Like, you have tangible evidence. You have made it real that actually contact is magnificent and it's beautiful. And just look at these. When you see these beings that Casey's photographed, you're going to know what I'm talking about. And so you brought actually the truth of what this really is in. And I don't see that anywhere apart from through, you're the portal for that. That's how I see you. You're the portal for actual, real contact.
We all are. Yes, we all are. And getting ourselves to the point where we can remember that and actualize that is the purpose of many of us in this lifetime. You had mentioned the lies, and when I hear that, I think of the 3D control system, and I have a very different idea on that indeed than what do a lot of people. the control system in 3D is not unlike the control system that we each have within our own personal structures. That control system, my control system, keeps Casey. The reason that you see approximately the same thing every time you see me is because I have a control system in place that holds everything that's me. Yes? So does the 3D system itself, the 3D world itself. It's composed of rule sets, if you will. And the entities in higher space and the people here in 3D space that are tasked to comprise that control system and who are responsible for keeping 3D are just doing their jobs. So 3D is what it is. And in order to move through the classroom that is 3D, it has to be kept 3D. You can't bring fourth grade information into the third grade class, or it's going to confuse the third graders. First, they have to go through what it is that they have to go through to get to that awareness themselves. And it's a process. You know, we live that process through our lifetimes. So yeah, I don't see that the control system is evil or they're spreading lies. I see it as they're holding 3D in the 3D frequency. And this is a classroom, and they're just keeping the classroom what it is. Yeah, so this 3D classroom is not what will change. This 3D classroom will always be this 3D classroom for the second graders coming in that need the 3D classroom. Yeah, next. It's we who change. It's we who have to expand out beyond 3D, and getting mad at 3D for being what it is so that we can do that is kind of regressive. That's going to hold us back. We're going to start to fight and with our inaccurate ideas, see it for something that it's not. And that's just going to put us on a path of it taking a whole lot more time for us to graduate to 3D. So I think if people just saw it more for what it is and what it's designed to do, without the judgments, that are very common in 3D. I mean, that's like one of the biggest things that we have to work our way through is our own judgments and the false thoughts that come out of those and those structures that we hold ourselves in and live our lives through and have relationships by in that way. Now we are apt to do that, but we're also tasked to get through that, to get past it, to the point where we're not using our own judgment. We're opening our pure awareness and observing through pure awareness. And when you do that, when you learn to do that through practices like meditation, you see 3D and the 3D control system for what it is, not what you think it is, for what it is. And we'll never, I think, in 3D see the totality, you know, of what it is for itself, but we'll begin to glean that it's here as the structure for the structure and not against it. Not against anyone here.
See, that's why you're here. See, it's you are the crystal, you're crystal clear, and your message is so crystal clear. Thank you for the clarity on that. But let me just say something about that. You have brought 3D evidence into a 3D space about a multidimensional reality.
Kind of.
Kind of. Excellent. Tell us.
I'd rephrase that a little. So there's a spectrum through 3D. Some see this as a rainbow spectrum or gradient of 7. And as you move through the dimension itself through the gradients, you inevitably end up at that gradient, the 7th gradient, that's right there at the edge of the next dimension, right? Right there, there's a bleed over space between the two dimensions. And this is often referred to as the etheric. That's where I am. That's where, and you can still see me because it's still associated with 3D. And certainly anyone in the 5th, 6th, and 7th gradients are going to be coming across me. Yes. And it's just in that little bleed over space between the two dimensions, where the two dimensions meet, that those in the galactic space, 4, 5, and 6D, are communicating with me and passing signals through the crystal into the 3D territory. Now, only those in the territory closest to the gradient where I am are likely to ever come across this, but it's certainly available to the entire spectrum because it's a part of it.
So that explains it even. Every time you talk, I'm just getting more elevated. I feel like I've taken something. I feel like I've taken something really nice and I'm just getting high, actually.
Yeah, good. That's exactly what it feels like, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's an awesome way to describe it. You start to live in that state of what I simply call wonder, awe. Begin to glow, the eyes begin to glow, everything seems to present a bit more clearly. Yeah. And this is what it's like as you're passing through the gradients, is as well. When you start to get, through the 5th and 6th gradient toward the 7th of the 3rd dimensional spectrum. Yeah, it's a waking up process where now you're seeing the whole thing. You're seeing all that you've moved through all your 3D incarnations. You're not seeing it in a way that you can delineate it out necessarily, but you're inwardly rather seeing it and experiencing it through your structure. And
yeah.
there's a joy that comes in that, certainly a magicalness, a perpetual state of, oh, yeah, all right, okay, you're getting it, a bit more and a bit more quickly. And not all the time still. You're still gonna be in, the 3D spectrum and get rushed and hit with stuff and all of that. You're not totally out until your body has dematerialized itself from here and materialized itself in 4D. And at a certain point, I have done that, by the way, and I can shift my consciousness into that body probably at any point, but there'll be a point at which I do it. It hasn't come yet.
The point of which you do it where you'll just stay there, you mean?
Exactly, where I will shift over from there and stay there.
Yeah, stay there. And as in, like, you're not coming back into the body that I'm perceiving now.
Literally, yeah, it will dematerialize into the form that I have there.
Beautiful.
I was put through training programs just because we are on that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but a thought came.
Definitely.
I was put through 2 specific high intensity training programs when I was going through the 4 years between 2009 and 2013, where I was going out of body almost every day. And one of those training programs was really funny. It wasn't funny when I was going through it because it was very frustrating. I would go through the process of consciously shifting out of Earth space into the etheric frequency bandwidth of Earth space. And when I got there, immediately I'd get pulled out of there into another environment. And it would happen really fast. So you lose a bit of consciousness sometimes, but it's pretty fast. You come back in, you're like, I'm in another area. And as soon as you have a thought to yourself, you're pulled out of it and you're put in another one. And I finally realized, oh, okay, this is actually a training program. They're, doing this until I can maintain full conscious awareness, even when they pull me fast from one place and put me somewhere else. Yeah, it was a fascinating process. And then that had a further evolution of it, where I had to learn to stay conscious, not just when I myself dematerialized and materialized somewhere else, but when the environment around me dematerialized and materialized into something else. So there was a whole bunch of different scenarios that I had to be put in when I was working through this training program so that I could maintain full conscious awareness through any event. And that's important because if any degree of consciousness that you lose puts you back in dimension. And then you'll have to go through a process, you know, movements in life, you know, to get yourself back forward to where you were to start with. And that can happen in moments, but it can also take you longer. So
when you pull back and you come back into another, you come back, lose a moment of consciousness and you go back to that space. How do you avoid that? How can one avoid that?
So the training program itself was a program to remain consciously alert within the shift itself. Mm-hmm. So not consciously alert in an environment, like most people who go out of body go, oh, I landed in the park, and they say this is what happened in the park. I was tasked to maintain the conscious state through the actual shift between frequencies. Mm. And the more you do it, the more you acclimate to it, the more you become observant in it, the more you notice certain things that happen in it. You make your recognitions. Oh, this is what's happening. And just like when you first start maybe learning how to drive and you're driving real slow, it takes a while before you're ready to put on the gas and sort of go at a faster speed and still be comfortable. It's like that. It's not any different. You sort of acclimate to the feeling of going at that new speed, you know, and then it becomes comfortable, and then you can do it anytime. You know, there's not any time that you go into fear and reduce your speed, right? Unless the road situations call for it, of course. But yeah, you just slowly begin to acclimate. And so what I would see, I'm very visual. Of course, I am a seer. And so when I shift, even maintaining the conscious state within the shift itself, there's still visual phenomena. So void, absolute blackness, pure peace, point of light, star-filled. You know, so as you go through, you start to see these varying visual phenomena that are in them, and there's varying things that can happen with these phenomena in themselves. And through the whole thing, you are your whole system is open in awareness to the fact that there's many beings in this experience with you. And that can come to play in the experience in various ways, but mostly it's through communication processes. So things are being explained. When I was younger, before any of this started happening, there was an interesting phenomena that would periodically occur. And it would occur when I was in an altered state, but back then the altered state was not done through spiritual disciplines. It was usually something that I had gone out and drank too much or something like this. So I would be in that in-between state and realize there would always be a male voice to the side of my left ear. In front of my face would be a scroll. There'd be a quill, and words and really beautiful script were written on it. And the scroll would scroll as the person speaking would recite what was on the scroll to me. This would just go on for hours and hours and hours. Can't remember why that came up and what I'm saying, but there you go.
That's very interesting. So it was almost being narrated to you, but you could see the speaker and you could see the scroll. Do you remember what was it? What was on the scroll? Do you have any recollection of that? Was it like, did you understand it?
The actual words at the time of the experience, yes, but I could not hold the awareness of the communication once my brainwaves were back in beta, which is the bandwidth we use here in 3D physical space. It's a narrow bandwidth. It holds just a tiny bit of information. And so, yeah, back then I hadn't learned to hold that higher frequency awareness and lower 3D frequency space. That took the decades of spiritual disciplines and getting to where I am right now. And even still, what I'm able to hold is tiny relative to the enormity of what actually comes through to me in these experiences. Yeah, 3D beta frequency bandwidth data is just, it's just infinitesimal in relation. Yeah, but even that is a lot to the people here. And it's a lot to me as a person here. I'm just always, whoa, even over that little fragment. And I refer to the beings that I bring through the crystal as a tiny fragment. I mean, it's a tiny fragment of what's actually occurring. Yeah. And what actually comes through the crystal are entire downloads, as people call them. I call them stories. So I can see an entire lifetime, and so when I'm actually in real time visually going into the crystal, it's actually playing out. There's movement, people are doing things, but when I snap the picture, a still frame of a particular set of concepts will come through. So for instance, when the story of my birth into this earth life came through, what I can see is myself as a newborn infant sleeping on my stomach. A large face that's actually a spectrum of multiple faces, sort of put together in one, looking down at me. In the background, in the way background, is my earth mom and dad, very recognizable to me. Closer up front than them is a conical headed ET male, eye locked with a more human looking female who actually looks somewhat similar to you, actually, in appearance. And so all of that came through the frame, and more. There was an ET entity speaking up to me through my pillow. And his name's Saif, and that may be who had been orating the scroll to me all of those years. I don't know. It seems to me when I look at that frame. So it's a lot, but these are 6-dimensional frames. They're multidimensional. There's layers to them, and most people can't see. So what I learned how to do is step down the 60 frames into a 3D ability to see. I just focused in on one particular being. Now, if you look at that being, it's going to break down also. It's going to fractal into the components that compose it too, if your vision will allow you to do that. But what most people will see in that frame is the main being. I just do a portrait type shot of them where you can see a full face shot of hundreds of beings have come through, upwards of 500 now. Shall we show everybody?
Yeah, let's go. Come on.
Okay, let's see here. Let me share my screen.
Folks, get ready because this is stunning.
Okay, we'll start out with Isa. So Isa is the crystal that I work with for the contact work. And she is a teardrop shaped, lightly citrine, clear quartz crystal. And she has multiple features within her that I find make her perfect for this work, including the teardrop shape, which allows her to nest really securely in my hand when I'm really having to rotate when I go in there. She has an incredibly large rainbow cluster right in her center that provides a lot of the color that you'll see in the frames, and a variety of inner planes. Now, the stored data in this crystal are stored on these inner planes. And so that's sort of where I'm going when I'm going into the crystal. But I can actually go out beyond the body of this crystal, out into galactic space as well. And there's a technique that I use for this. And I'm newly putting together a video series titled The Crystal Work Explained, where I go into the process of all of that. It's too long to do in an interview, but if anybody's interested, they can go to my YouTube channel. It's simply Casey Claar, my name, and you'll see these videos and you can have a look. Notably, people who work with crystals are really interested in this. So the beings are all extraterrestrial in nature, and I have a quite broad definition of what I mean by extraterrestrial, and basically I just mean galactic. So the galactic beings are beings who graduated from their own planetary sphere, their own 3D curriculum, and are now occupying the galaxy, galactic space, which is 4, 5, and 6 dimensions. This is Quinn. Quinn is the being who, in the beginning, came through the most. I have a very strong connection with this being, and Quinn has a variety of different forms that are all highly similar, but not identical. They're not the same lifetime, but it's the same being in multiple forms that highly resemble each other in specific ways that always allow me to recognize him. And it's the incarnation in which he is an elven, he's a more elven type of being, is the one that's really closely connected with me. And yeah, he has elven pointy shaped ears and very light olive green toned skin and hair so black that you see it, you think it's blue. If you've ever seen black so black it appears blue, that's what his hair is like. And he has contacted me in the out-of-body experience. And it's in the out-of-body experience that I see him in that particular form. My heart always breaks when I see him. It devastates me, and I won't quite be myself for some time. So I know the connection runs deep. Shall we see another?
Please. So he is in your image, but also when you go out of body, that's where you get to see him as well. Okay, I didn't know that. That's fascinating. So you can see them here, but then when you go out of body, you see they're there. They're there.
Yes.
Oh wow. Okay, that's how you get to know them so intimately then.
This is Keys. And Keys is wonderful. He's just like a deer. You know, his energy is so soft and so quiet and so open and welcoming. He's the being that I like to put through to other people the most, because he just has an energy that it seems everyone can connect with. So he has just this wonderful universal energy that opens out to everyone. And most people who see him all comment the same way. He's very easy for them to connect with. So the beings, when we bring them through this way, in this faced front way, they don't come through this way in the frames, and we'll go through that a little bit later on in this talk. But I have a technique I use where I center them upright, take everything else out of the frame and face them front. And that is so that we can do eye-to-eye contact. This is a spiritual discipline called Tritalk with the beings and connect with them. And this is meant to help prepare the human central nervous system for contact, which for many of us is already happening, and for many more of us is coming. And when it first happens, the central nervous system does go into shock. Mine went into shock for 2 years. My physical body shook literally in a way that I almost could not stop for 2 years when this began. And so, and that's a part of the process that we all have to move through. But in order for us to have a successful paradigm shift, a successful graduation from 3D into 4D, where we are going to be interacting with extraterrestrial consciousness, it's really important to begin the process of preparing the human central nervous system for that, because a lot can go quote wrong with that. And it can take a lot longer than it needs to if it's done in other ways. But this seems to be a reachable way, you know, for a lot of people to begin that process, people who wish to begin that process. But it does take opening your gaze to the point where you can gaze unblinkingly. To the point where you're actually feeling the contact from within your own system. And at that point, your chakras are going to begin to be worked with, beginning with the base chakra and your fight flight system. And there'll be a whole gamut of thoughts and feelings and just general stuff that you'll begin working out there before you begin going through your energetic structure, through the chakras, through that whole system, acclimating you to 4D life, which is life in the galaxy, which is where all of the other life forms are. Yeah. So it is a process, and it does take getting used to, and this is something that we've helped to bring forward to help with that process. Keys is a wonderful place to begin if you're wanting to begin that process yourself. Very gentle, very gentle. Shin, like ocean without the O. Shin. He's like the father figure to Quinn. He's in the same oversoul or family structure. He also comes through quite a lot and has a connection with who was my own father in this lifetime. Here, Shin, Quinn, Shun, there's a lot of them. All of their names are somewhat similar. Khan, they've clustered themselves together here to begin putting through additional information to me. And in this one, they've formatted themselves to appear as a sphinx. So I'm understanding that the information coming through this frame is related to Egypt and the Sphinx. If I were to do a Tritok or a gazing into this frame, I could receive more data. Honestly, I'm doing the work so much, and I bring through the brings so regularly that there's just not the time to connect for data myself. So maybe at some point in the future, when my vocal channel begins opening, I can bring that through not just to myself, but to everyone also. But this is just an example of how that happens, how the beings will also form into formations that bring through additional information. Said, I want to hug him every time I see him. He's my favorite to do the eye gazing with, and that's because there's a pure energy exchange that happens between us. There's no words, there's no vocal or verbal telepathy. It's pure energy, and this is something that I need in my structure to help me keep going in a healthy way in this incarnation. And so said is often challenging for people to gaze upon. So if you have already begun the process of preparing your central nervous system for contact and are at a juncture where an extra challenge is needed to get through more of your stuff, then said would be a good place to begin. He's wonderful. He'll pull me in and away from you if you let him. Is there anything that you'd want to say about anybody we've seen so far? Or should I just keep going?
No, you keep going, because you're creating a space where I'm able to really, I'm in with them, you know, I get it. I get what you're talking about. And so I don't want to interrupt that.
Okay. I won't say too much about the others, but I will show them. This is Piqua Ani. There's an association of this being with some indigenous peoples here on our planet. We do not have what I'm going to call a strong connection. He is one of the beings who came through in a quite overt way, and it does want to make connection with our peoples, but there are beings who I feel a stronger connection with who tend to get my attention before him. He's rather reaching out to me now. I almost sometimes feel when I'm doing this, I am going into a channeling state. So maybe that is how that will one day begin to happen. One thing about this frame is you can see through the light ray down through the center of his face that additional beings are coming through down here, and that's who he's wanting to show us. That is the communication he's putting through. But again, I haven't spent a lot of time connecting yet with Piqua perhaps one day. I do have a very strong Indigenous Indian connection in this lifetime. And so I understand the connection by which he was able to connect with me. It's just that time is what it is here. And there are just so many, and the work is so much at this time. I work with the crystal regularly, every week, and bring through dozens of the beings every week. And it's only a portion of what it is that I do. So just things are getting more and more busy as time flows on. This is Portabai, and this is an example of a being who came through in a rendering request for someone else. I do this. So I put this option out there. It's if you make your way to my website, consciousnessexploration.com, you will see a link there in the right sidebar that says request a rendering. There is a process you will have to move through in order to do this, because I can't do it for everyone. And so those who are willing to move through the process are the ones I open to doing this service for. And I will simply just go into the crystal for you and ask if there is a being who wants to come forward for you right now. I have no control over who the being is who comes through. Often multiple beings come through, but there will be a main one that wanted to connect. And this being came through for Mary, from Steve and Mary from the Breaking the Silence. And what's interesting there is this being, I don't know if you can see this, has skin that is very opalescent. It's like a pearl with an opalescent shimmer to the outside and various colors. And this is identical to an egg-shaped craft I had contact with that I had told Steve and Mary during my time there with them. And yeah, so this being may be a representative of the species of being that were on that craft, but they specifically came forward for Mary. Arya, a beautiful being, and she's a fish. she's an aquatic being. She lives in the lower understructure to the totality of the structure that comes through to me through the crystal, of which there are just thousands and thousands and unending thousands of beings, because within each being is a makeup of many other beings who are coming together to comprise that one being in that life experience. And so it's just endless. But one of the things I see through the crystal is the way the beings connect. I can see where one is in relation to the others. And she's at the very low end of the entire structure, in the water element. Again, she's an aquatic. And that is all I know of her at this time. Here we see her eyeing a bird that's flying above the water. And in a state of concern. Now, this is also information to me. And again, if I had more time to look more specifically into what that message was, I would. But again, just so much information comes through that there just isn't the time to look into all of it. Ishtvatuti. This being is associated with the Anunnaki. Also a high association with Egypt, the ancient Egypt, and Ptah. The being that we know here on our planet is Ptah, which has the connection with the Anunnaki, of which she is in that structure. So there's multiple family structures that come through, and yeah, she's a member of that structure. She's connected at a very precise angle to a being who comes through a lot, whose name is Saren, who is actually on a craft in our local space. I don't have him here today. This is Theseus. I just brought through a few here, and a collection that will just kind of show how different the beings are and can be. It's not like one being comes through that looks slightly different from another. These are all very different species, races, and beings. This being came through and gave the name Theseus. It's spelled differently than the Theseus that we know on our planet, but we know there is a connection due to the sound frequency vibration, which is so similar. And even gazing at him, I just get a very strong connection to Greece, to the oracles, specifically, actually, more specifically to the Romans. And I feel he's a soldier, and I can see armaments around him. And again, he's come through again with a very concerned look in his eyes. And so this is very likely something I'm processing from a past lifetime. And he's giving me some information right now. I'm sorry, I'm going to start to fade. But again, for everybody else who happens to be watching, these frames are for eye-to-eye gazing with the beings. And it is interesting what begins to happen as you open through your eyes and let the consciousness and energy of the beings enter that which is you, that consciousness, that energy, which is you, and commingle, communicate. There is a very strong sense of communication that does and will begin coming through. And you can learn, anyone can learn as much from the beings who have come through as can I. They do not just come through for me. They come through for our world, and anyone who happens to be coming across them, there's information here for you. Okay, Hrag, very different being. A very different being, and his eyes actually are glowing orbs, which is spectacular. And within the orbs are moving pastel hues. He actually speaks through the hues, through these orbs that are his eyes. Incredible being. Again, one that can be shocking to some others. I don't know, they just all seem to be beautiful to me. I'm open to them all, which is probably what makes me fit for this work. I don't have a judgment system, or at least not one that's in place to the degree as are most that are here in 3D. And so I can immediately feel when I gaze into this being his utter softness, the softness in contrast to this hard outer shell is remarkable. We generally want to refer to these beings as monsters, and I mean, nothing further could be from the truth. And if you just open your system and understand that all is one, and that no harm will come to you in the one. We can do harm to ourselves by our own thoughts and judgments. And this is what a lot of people experience. But if we can just get beyond that through discipline, spiritual disciplines, meditation, most especially, we can learn to work through those kinds of tendencies that bring us into harsh judgments and thought patterns and false matrices and stories that we then pass on to our planet, which other people can enter, and they are false. They will rest here right with the true matrix that does. There's a reason for everything, I suppose. And if one takes themselves down that road, then they do to learn something in particular. So nothing is ever for naught. But yeah, this is a beautiful being with wonderful features and characteristics that just blow my mind, just blow my mind. You can see if you look here, coming down the center will always be a series of other beings. Yeah, this being right here is the one that Hrag wanted to meet with me. There's another here that comprises the lower portion of the phase. There'll always be multiple of them coming down. So as you gaze, you'll begin to see the others. But the main being I've tried to make so main that it catches the bulk of the attention. Esteban. So this is a being who connects with me through like talents and skills. Like myself, he's an oracle and seer. He comes from a group called the Ore. And this is not necessarily what they're called. These are sound frequency vibrations that come through to me. It was my first association with the energy that I see when I take my gaze into this frame. There's a key that comes down the center of his face. Very interestingly here, I play with the frame sometimes because I will notice something. And what I noticed when I was gazing at Esteban is that his facial features were what appeared a near identical match to Sed. So I superimposed their two faces, and this is why he has lips showing and nostrils showing, whereas in his frame alone, he doesn't. But the two frames themselves identically superimposed. So there is a connection here between a strong connection between Esteban and Sed. Esteban, I feel, was an actual Spanish gentleman who, if he didn't live a life here on our Earth planet, then it was a planet that also hosted human life near identical to our own. And then again, the energy coming through around him, through the eyes, and certainly the neon features through the center of the face. This is the aura. And I'll just move through here to show you how I process these frames. Now, this is not how Esteban or the aura came through. They came through like this frame here on your left. So, and you can see Esteban is over here with the one very clear eye, but I have a good 2/3 of his face, and that's exactly what I need to process that frame, everything else out of it, center him, and get this over here where you see just him. And again, in this frame on his own, you don't have the nostrils or the mouth. What you have here is a very clear key and keyhole coming down the center of the face. So again, this is data. When you take your gaze into the frame, you'll begin to see and be able to read the data coming through in this visual format. I just happen to be very good at this, being a seer. My vision center has always been open, and I'm quite advanced in my capability with that. This is Mir, and she's also an aquatic, a duck-like species. I first met this species in an out-of-body experience that occurred when the C virus was going around, and it was very concerning to me. What I did not know if this was a positive or a negative oriented species because of what was happening in this, but there was multiple environments superimposed, and I saw these duck-like aquatic beings. They're of course bipedal. They were wearing colorful hazmat suits in shades of pink, peach, and blue. Clearly the different colors were different types of beings that were doing different jobs. It was they were working alongside the water where there was a large submarine type craft part, and the idea is that they were doing some cleanup of the organisms that were spreading through our consensus world at that time. I've since come to see them as positive. However, there is a self-orientation to them, and in the experience, there were also military personnel protecting me. So I won't go into that too much, just to say that this is Mir, and Mir is a representative of their species who came through to speak on their behalf and to help me grow more clear. And I do connect a lot with Mir because I have a lot of questions. So when I have a lot of questions, doubt, concern, this is when I will most often connect more deeply with the beings to get the information that I'm looking for that will help clarify my own understanding. So this on the left is an example of how she first came through. And on the right I've removed all of the clutter and featured she herself. So this is how I process the frames to get them to what you see. Often they'll be much more of a mess than what you even see here. One of the tasks when working with the crystal is to, because the beings come through occupying the same space, is get them like clouds to disperse from one another. And so you'll end up with a mess of a lot of different things. So that's it in a nutshell as to what we're doing with the crystal as far as extraterrestrial contact and helping, and our service to help prepare the human central nervous system for live contact, live first contact, which a lot of us, like I say, are already starting to have. I myself, certainly. So that requires a shift into the etheric frequency bandwidth, or a graduation through the 7 gradations of the 3rd dimension into the 7th. At the 7th right there, it touches the 4th dimension, and there's that bleed over space called the etheric. It's the etheric frequency bandwidth of our own planet, but it is also connected to the rest of the galaxy. And so, yeah, I'm there. That's what I was trained to do. In the 4 years I was trained to consciously shift into and out of my body, which I refer to as shifting into and out of Earth space, is the same thing. And that's where the contact is happening. That's where my contacts happen. That's where I go inside my own consciousness when I'm working with the crystal and bringing those signals through.
I get it. That is phenomenal.
You appear speechless, my dear.
I'm actually hypnotized. I've got this. Do you know what it is? I'm looking at the eyes, and you're saying what I love about what you're doing is that you're preparing my central nervous system. When I saw some of those beings, I just felt nothing but love. And then it was like, and then as you spoke, I was warming up. I was warming up and I was going, this is okay. It's okay. He's like, it's so intense.
Yeah.
It's so intense. And then when I lose my judgment for what I perceive that to be, I'm then it begins to move, and I can see what I can begin to sense what it's doing.
And
I'm mesmerized.
And that's you shifting. That's you making the conscious shift out of Earth space. Okay, and that's what these frames are help designed to do. This is to help with the shift. This is to help aid and assist with the shift. I need to speak louder. I know I start to speak quietly. Can you still hear me?
I can see you. I can hear you. Everything's coherent. We're all here. We've landed on Earth. This is a transmission of contact with Casey Claar and her beings. And Casey, in Project Camelot, Kerry did an interview with you, and you mentioned the family of Tell us a little bit about what about that, please.
Well, at the time of that interview, that was a family group that was very strongly coming through, that very strongly wanted to connect with me, that was bringing through the information on Atlantis, on the Atlantean era of, I want to say, the progression from that era rather than the destruction of that era. I mean, it was the end of an era, but it did progress into what we know as our current time. And they simply were coming through with some of that information. The family units that come through will come through maybe just once, and then, somewhere down the road, somebody from it will come through again. Or sometimes it'll be weeks, that they're really working on getting through. They didn't come through. They came through for that period of time, and then it was off to another Oversoul family group, connected with the enormity of this entire structure that I'm accessing through the crystal. but all connected. I really can't say much more about them other than that the being who is coming most strongly through, who I am calling Ur, clearly came through with that name to bring through the region that it was trying to bring through to my attention, which is the region that we now know as, where we're finding the buried cities of Göbekli Tepe and the others in the surrounding area, which many do feel are the remnants of some of those from Atlantis who escaped before the deluge. And I have a strong connection, of course, with Atlantis. And yeah, I have not remembered yet who I am, who I was there, or who I am at large, behind all of my many incarnations through the dimensions. That has not come through. It comes through just like it comes through for anybody who still occupies 3D space in bits and pieces, enough to get my curiosity, enough to get me to keep looking, enough to keep me advancing through my meditations and other spiritual disciplines, and growing in my dream state awareness, and wanting to bring through information, because that's what's behind this whole process, is opening myself as a portal that is resting between galactic space and our planetary existence, and literally actualizing itself as that which anyone who wishes can step through into galactic space. I'm so sorry. I guess that was a good time to do that. But that's what we're doing. We're opening the portal. I am the portal. People can do it through me, just listening to me, talking to me, just like so many others. Peter is another wonderful portal. Kasara, who he introduced me to when I first came across Peter, which is how I think I came across you. I think this was back in 2016 or somewhere in that time frame. He was doing regression sessions with Mary Rodwell, and he had himself met an ET artist named Kasara. Her name here on the planet is Christine Dennett, a wonderful artist. If anybody doesn't know her, you can find her at kasara.org. Oh my goodness. She is who is responsible for opening my awareness to the dormant skill I had working with the crystals. It was her ability to so amazingly bring through the buildings that opened or burst the desire in me to want to do something similar. But I absolutely have no artistic ability. I mean, none, not for singing, not for dancing, not for painting, not for drawing, not for anything. It's almost ridiculously so. I love to do these things because of how badly I am at them. It makes me laugh, and I like to laugh. But I had no talent. And so she just seeing her talent caused me to look deeply inside myself for what was here. And what I found is what I've just shown you all. So it's interesting how when we connect with each other, it's not so much that this gift was already awakened in me. It awakened when I myself was awakened. It awakened with me. But I was not myself aware of it. It was sitting here undiscovered until I discovered Peter, who helped me discover Christine. And this is how it all happened. This is how we all open one another. And it's why it's so important what you're doing, sitting and bringing through so many of the others of us for us to intersect with, because we're all pieces of each other's puzzle.
Yeah, we really are all pieces of each other's puzzle. That's exactly how I talk to my friends and people I work with. It's like, I said, we're just all helping put this puzzle together. And when you spoke about Göbekli Temple, and you spoke about that was discovered, and the gift of yourself being discovered, it is as within, so without. And as we discover these incredible sites, and as we discover the abilities that we have, as we attune to nature, I, in my own unfoldment and the awakening or the waking up process, I've understood that the nature of reality is that we are nature. We are the nature in reality. And that means that the crystals and everything in this reality, we are that. And so when I shared your images with friends, I have pictures, I have people sending me pictures of cloud beings now. I have a picture of today, a girl who does aura soma with the liquids, and she's like, but Biba, this is a whole new thing. So, you know, we can really have contact and communication. It doesn't have to be watching something on the internet. It can be, it's the internet. It's bringing that out, which is what you just magnificently displayed to us. And years ago, I was listening to Bashir, and he made an idea. He said, I want you to just download this image and stick it on the outside of your window. And it was this scary looking ET, right? It was a proper gray. And it was a female. See, there was a not so scary one and a humanoid one and a not so humanoid. He said, pick the one that resonates with you most. And he suggested that you put a life-size head on the outside of your window and you don't close your curtains, so you get used to looking at this. And I found that very amusing. I thought that is I couldn't believe he was suggesting that. And I thought it was so genius. But looking at that outside my window scared me, because it was like this big, it was in a black background and it had the big eyes and it wasn't smiling. But your image is, I resonate with what you're doing so much because I'm mesmerized by it. My whole system has almost pixelated based on what you're presenting here. I'm pixelating.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
The more of us begin to do this, and more regularly, the easier the whole shifting process will begin to flow. You mentioned a really interesting things with the window, and I can't let this get by me. First, I began the same way. The images that I would see were appearing in water drops, in shadows cast in light on the sidewalk, and the sky and trees and nature. So that's how it began with me too. It's just that the crystal was included in that, and I beelined for the crystal at that point. The crystal can bring through much more because the crystal rests simultaneously in all dimensions at once, and so it offered me the largest opportunity, as it were. But the window, I was shown this in out-of-body experiences. So I've time traveled. I've been time traveling through my life, creating time loops from one point in my life, which is at a very advanced age, back in time to when I have my first conscious remembered OBE, which I'm still conceptualizing as a dream at that point. Which is an OBE in which you don't know you're out of body. But in that experience, my much older self traveled back in time to that much younger self, and my awareness was alert to the contact in the dream state, and I was simply standing outside my window, looking in my window, and the older version of me just stepped up and put a hand on my shoulder. And as I'm turning to look around to see who it is, I wake up. Now, the only reason I know it's me is because that's not the only time that happened. In 2009, when I awakened permanently, and this is what I'm referring to when I'm referring to awakening, not necessarily so much as a process as, although it's that too, but more fundamentally as when there's no more going back and forth between wake and sleep. You're awake permanently now. You're not going back to sleep. And so that juncture for me was 2009. And it's at this point that through the out-of-body experience, I could see I was traveling to myself from points in the future to points in the past. And I had done it so many times, I had lost track. But in every single one of these experiences where I'm taken is right outside my window. Now, I'm often not outside my window by myself. There's a galactic being there with me. They are always outside our windows. And this you can also capture through the crystal. I have one fabulous image. I wasn't trying to do this. I was working with the crystal and just noticed that the light coming through the window in the back and the trees in it were making such a gorgeous picture. This is often how it happens when I discover the beings. Wow, that's gorgeous. Let me just take a picture of that. And it's not that I saw anything there. It's just all of a sudden I was like, wow, that's gorgeous. But then when I looked at that picture, standing outside the window is an ET being. And so you can use your own crystals to capture the beings who are at all times outside your window. And I do have a guardian. This particular being is always outside. This particular being, it was the first being who ever came through the crystal. And I believe this being is on Taran. And I have captured him outside my window and in various other situations. So he's a guardian. We never meet. He's a guardian. There's a distance between us. It's very clear. I'm your guardian. We are not to communicate. I am your guardian. Yeah.
But you don't close your curtains then. You don't need to close your curtains.
I have never closed my curtains in my life.
What a beautiful window.
I never even have curtains. No, I never close my curtains.
You're such an intriguing character.
It's
like you have to have the light.
I have to be barefoot. Those are two things that are a must for me in this life. I've never worn shoes and I've never had drapes.
Really? No drapes, no shoes.
There'll be a test on this later.
I'm sure you can see that. And then I'm sure you can see what the test will be, so you'll know how to get past the test. Wow. What's it like being you? I know it's a ridiculous question, but do you have any idea what I mean when I say that? Like, what's it like being you? You're just like...
To me, it's just normal.
To me, it's so much fun.
To me, it's just normal. But what my normal is very different from most other people's normal. Yeah. I never had the earth life kind of goals. You know, I knew from a very young age I would never marry, never have children, never settle down, never buy a house. You know, not do all of the normal things. You know, it's all been about, this has been a spiritual based life. So what excited me was meditation.
Okay.
What excited me was going out into the middle of the desert and just sitting there. It was very exciting to me because my inner life has always been there, you know, and situations like that always brought it closer to me. So it's been that kind of a life. It's a monastic lifetime. Spent a good deal by myself, in company with my own inner collective. And that brings through a lot of interesting experiences. The most interesting to me being my vision, which here in 3D physical space is almost blind. It's funny, seers are often depicted as being blind. This is actually a very real phenomenon. Like without these, I can see nothing. I can just see swatches of color.
Wow.
And that's what helps me see inside so well, by the way, is I learned when I was in grade school that when the teacher was when it was story time and the teacher was telling us a story, I could blur my vision, eyes open, blur my vision, and go into the story. So that's just something that has always been here. And so I've always intentionally blurred my vision, my external vision, in order to see more of what's happening inside. Yeah, and that slowly has become so much of a, that's a repetitive stress that came to the point of me beginning to lose my physical vision. But I also think that that's a part of all of this. That in itself is fun. See, here's something, I find odd things quite fun. Yeah, because there's always something to explore, you know, and there can be a tendency in 3D to become lost in the mundane. And yeah, that probably was not ever going to happen with me just because of where I put my foot. That like the mundane never got my attention. It just cannot get my attention. But yeah, losing my vision. Oh, how neat is that? Look at that. When you take your glasses off and you realize that you can't make out any actual objects, just sort of swatches of color. And with a vision like that, wow, I can actually see into the particles that are composing the space, and there's movement, and you start to just, there's things to get interested at, that aren't usual, that are not mundane, in which you're learning something new. Yeah, and so life was always very interesting.
Beautiful. Because you see through the fabric, don't you, of what the 3D space is like. Tell us a bit about how you see it.
Now, the most interesting thing there is I didn't realize that I did. I could, and I was, but I wasn't actually cognizing the fact that I was. And that fascinates me. It's like, how can you be experiencing something and not cognize the fact that you are? I'm like, and I discovered that's what 3D is. That's what 3D is doing. That's what the veil is. The veil is nothing. The thing that blocks us from the rest of all that is nothing. you begin to discover it is so sheer, so gossamer as to be next to nothing, and you can actually see it. You can see what it is. You can see through it. You can see what it's composed of. I'm sorry, my bangs are doing a really weird thing. Anyway, yeah, there's always something, but so that's the part I began exploring at the point of my awakening. At that juncture, the major thing that happened was I began cognizing what I had already always been experiencing. And the first thing and most dramatic thing, of course, was my vision. I have what I call an expanded or extended range of vision, and I can see beyond 3D physical space quite easily. Yeah.
Was that really therapeutic, coming home to that truth, that actually that's just your makeup, like with the awakening?
You're never alone. You're never alone. You do not have that fear. And which is maybe what allowed me to not go into the judgments that most people do when they do not have that. Yeah, I can definitely see into other lifetimes in which, I've had some significant past life recall that is horrifying. Life experiences where I'm that Aztec guy at the top of the pyramid, sacrificing and, things like this. So we have so many lifetimes. And it's interesting when you start to discover the ones that are most associating with the one that you have here, and you can see the graduation. Yeah, when you can see that graduation and, feel within your own being, because it's right there, right there. Yeah, it's an extraordinary feeling. There's a feeling of accomplishment, a courage, a power, strength.
Yeah, power for sure. Power of, because it's the same being in a different body. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Expressing itself in a different way, but it's the same.
And the really interesting thing that you can see is, especially in how the life concludes of those lifetimes that you bring to the front of your awareness in this incarnation, is how what we're doing in this life is actually creating the next.
You need to say that again, because people need to hear what you're saying. Things are doing their own thing here on this. Say that again, because people are living this life not aware of it, like, or not contemplating that actually, it's linked.
Yeah, and I think that it's good that we aren't actually cognizing that for the duration in which we're not meant to. We reach juncture points in those lifetimes where we're not meant to be cognizing it. We're meant to be, nose to the grindstone, learning from scratch for real, through actual processes of making errors and learning through that. But yeah, in all of that, there's a juncture point that we reach that expands us out into a new level of possibility. I mean, we learned in that constraint pattern what we were meant to learn, and great, now there's another constraint pattern. A constraint pattern just being a grade, right? In the third grade, there's a particular curriculum. You don't learn all of this stuff, you learn just this stuff. And so it's a constraint pattern. And although we don't like constraint patterns, and we have a tendency to think of them as jails, they're not, they're the contrast by which as living beings we grow. You know, just like plants use the contrasts of the soil and the air and water and sun to extend itself up. I mean, without those contrasts, nothing would happen. Yeah. If everything were just the same, if all medium was the same, if there was just consciousness and that's it, there wasn't earth, wind, air, and fire, you know, there were no mediums, nothing would happen. Right? Nothing happens. There just isness. Yeah. So the
just is.
Yeah, they're not prisons. They're not.
I saw this yesterday in the quantum healing. I saw that exactly what you're talking about, and I was speaking to myself, or myself was speaking into the cosmos, and I was watching how the different levels and the different dimensions and all of that, and I could see it from, I wasn't in it, I could see how it all works, and I was shown how you have to go through, you have to just go through it, because if you just jump from 3 to 7, third to the 7th dimension, you didn't come here to do that, Sean. You can't, you've got to work up through the system, and that's why you're here, is to live it out, live out the experience of it, right?
Yeah, it's a spiral. The way we experience it, ground level up, is a spiral. The way it's being experienced from the aerial level down is very different. And you'll get to the point where you can see the two. And they create a diamond shape, or what some people, they're two interpenetrating conical shapes, pyramids, if you will. Yeah. And they interpenetrate, and there's that space in the middle. And that's the same geometry through which signals are sent through the crystal. It's all the same. It's the same geometry that rests right here that lets us be aware in the dream state. You have to move yourself into that diamond shape in the center of the two interpenetrating conical shapes. And you're all of a sudden aware, because you're here and there. You have the expanded awareness, and you have the awareness of the more narrow field as well. Just like 4D, 3D, 2D, and 1D are contained within 4D, right? So it has the view of all of them. And 3D contains 1D and 2D. We can see the two-dimensional realm and the one-dimensional kingdom right here in our dimension. And it just keeps working that way on out to infinity. But there's always that juncture point where the one median meets the other, where 3 and 4D meet. There'll be that bleed over, that little area bleed over, and it creates a diamond shape. And in that diamond shape is, you know, you can commune and communicate via both sides. The expanded and the more narrow, the 3D and the rest of all that is, or to the extent that you're able. Yeah.
I love, my whole life, really, since I was very young, has been consciousness exploration. It's something that's always, as you said, it's never mundane. There's always so much to explore and understand. And you know what I learned yesterday? I learned the most, I don't know how to articulate it, but I realized that when I drop this body, that life's already happening now.
Yeah.
It doesn't start when I get into that body. So when I go into my next phase of whatever that is, or wherever that is, however I choose that to be, I believe that's already active now.
In more ways than one. In one way, because it literally is the future. And in another way, because all time is more fundamentally simultaneous than linear, right? But the what's most interesting to us here in 3D is that that's actually the future. It's like, wow. So yeah, of course it's already happening. The future and the way that we see it, it's funny because the time frame superimpose. We see the future as the future, but it's actually what came prior to us. So we see things like a camera does, upside down and backwards from what it actually is. You know, when you look through the old-fashioned cameras, what you see is upside down and backwards from what's actually out there in physical space.
Right on.
Because that's how we see here. Everything's
That's right.
inverted. So it's actually the priory, and that is advancing its own learning through smaller and smaller constraint patterns, because the more you constrain, the more opportunity there is for growth. So you'll often notice that through life, you tend to not make changes that you know you need to make until things get really bad. I mean, until you're really in the corner and you're like, well, I better do it now or I'm going to die or something. It's like until we really get ourselves cornered, we're not willing to make that change. Well, it's that way, and change is growth. And so the smaller and smaller constraint patterns are designed for growth opportunities. There's much more growth potential in 3D than there is in 4D.
Like the
It's
combustion
not as
of a star.
constrained.
There's much more growth capacity in 3D than there is in 4D. Is that what you just said?
There's more here. Yes, it's more constrained.
Oh, yeah, I know. Because when I meditate and I go out, and then, yeah, I understand so much more than I did before. And it's so lovely to just get new understandings of things. And sometimes there's spells of time where you're just living it out, being. And then there's times for new concepts, new ideas, and then you've got to mull over that and embody that, and then allow that to land really well. And then there's a period for me where it's just and then the wheel goes again, and we go. And I love change. Like, I love change. My mother we were always moving. It was always changing. School, friends, family, houses. I lived with all so change to me is something that's exciting. I love it. So, and that helps, doesn't it, when you're dealing with multidimensionality?
It does. You're a kindred soul indeed. Yeah, my life has been constant change too. Always moving, and my job's also always changing.
Yeah, me too. But listen, so when you get the crystal and you get the camera and you put the camera to the crystal, how do you not get a blurry image? This is a practical question.
Okay, so
Do you know?
So first, the crystal that you're holding right there has rounded edges, and you can't use a crystal that has rounded edges because you need geometry for this. So you need a crystal that has points and sharp edges. And, although you can take the camera into anywhere in the crystal, I use a technique called triangulation, where I go into a point where three faces meet. And that's just the technique. And usually that is directed into one of the inner planes also. So it's just a technique that works for my purposes. But the rounded corners won't work, and either will a cloudy crystal like the one that you're holding. It has to be a clear crystal. So
not this
crystal. You have to be able to see through it.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't use this crystal for this work, but this is a clear crystal at the top. And so, yeah, that'll be in the videos too, by the way. I think it was clip 3 that went into some perfect characteristics of the crystal for this work.
Oh yeah, like one thing I want to tell these people is, if you're interested in learning, on Casey's YouTube channel is very well presented information about all of this. So, you don't need to reiterate it all now, but it's all there.
Well, 6 chapters are, and we're far from complete, but there's a lot of information there, and it will take about 2 hours of your time to listen through it. And you can listen through 1 chapter at a time, or through a collection of 3 chapters at a time, or through collections of 6 chapters at a time, depending on
size pieces,
your interest and your capacity. And in the end, I will put it together to where all the chapters are all in one video, and people can use it and disperse it and use it to help teach others. And everything's out there.
You were about to say something, but I interrupted you again. Because you have you speak, and then there's like You pause a lot, which I love, by the way. You're a
Right.
pauser. Yeah. So you'll speak and then you'll continue. So you speak, pause, because this is what I noticed about you in many of your interviews, because I love listening to you. I actually put you on the other night. I have a red lamp, for 30 minutes, and I just put you on and I meditated to you just talking. Don't know what you were talking about, but I just put your voice on because your voice brings me into those realms very easily. And you were talking about I have no idea actually what I was saying.
Good.
You have a fantastic effect on me. I keep forgetting who I am. Thank you.
You are welcome, and thank you. Yeah, the idea is not necessarily to hear the words to the point where you can conceptualize them to the degree that you can state them yourself. That is almost not the point at all. It's just to listen and to hear what it is that you hear, whether that's frequencies or tones, or that it takes you into a new place, or that it took your mind to a place where you were working with a particular set of information. All of that is much more important.
No, yes.
I listen.
Now I remember.
In
Go on,
spiritual
please.
circles, that's called Shravana.
Ravana.
Shravana. And Shravana just means listening, but it's referring to real, genuine, authentic listening. And most people aren't able to do that because their mind is so busy thinking. This is where Tritak comes in. You gaze and you learn to gaze until your eyes do not blink. When your eyes do not blink, you're not interrupting what you're seeing or hearing with your own thoughts. You're in your pure awareness field. And with that, you can purely listen. And that lets in frequencies, and you'll feel the vibrations working through your system. And what's being said will embed, it will penetrate, and it will embed. And then you'll sort of find yourself knowing things without really realizing down the line how you know them. But it was because you actually offered yourself to that experience wherein you were listening to something someone else was having to share. Yeah, it's interesting. That's been a main discipline of mine.
And what a beautiful ability to be able to listen, right?
Without superimposing your own thoughts, yes. I do believe you have this gift, dear Biba.
Well, I've trained, like I work on my own spiritual practice, and I do have an ability to listen. When people come to me for quantum healing, you spend a couple of hours talking, and they're talking, but as they're talking, I'm listening, but I'm not listening to what they're saying. I'm listening to the other stuff, the vibration, the feeling, whatever that is. I'm listening to what's behind the words. And when I do that, they start morphing.
Mm-hmm.
They just start morphing. And then the energy in the room changes and they just start crying. In my capacity to listen, they get to release all that stuff, and it's all unspoken. And it's the most magnificent way to work. There's no words.
Yeah, it's a gift.
Yeah.
It is. It's a real gift. And thank you for your service.
I have a few people ask me about kundalini. I never had a kundalini awakening, so I'm not the person to guide them. So I'm only going to help people to something I understand experientially. So how would you give advice to somebody who is undergoing having the kundalini experience, because you personally went through that yourself?
Yeah, I wouldn't give guidance in general because everyone's experience of kundalini is so different. And my own process, my awareness did not come in on the process at the base, which is where most people's awareness does come into the process, meaning it had to reach all the way through into their physical body and their physical space to get their attention. And be alert to the fact that something was happening. But as soon as the kundalini touched my crown, I became alert. So my process was top down And then there's the explosion that works its way up the spine, as most people experience it. So again, because the processes are so different, I don't give any kind of guidance on that. In general, it has to be specific. So if somebody comes to me and they ask me a specific question in regard to the Kundalini, now I'm here. And that specificity could even be something like just fear. Because again, at the base chakra, you're working with fight, flight. The same thing you are when you're having the first contact with the beings, yes? So all of these things, by the way, happen synergistically together because they're all doing the same thing, reprocessing your own mental, energetic, and physical structures. So that's interesting. So yeah, you would have to ask me a specific question, and now I can address it specifically because within my awakening, it included everything, not just the base to crown. Again, I alerted as soon as I alerted right at the top. So again, my awakening included everything, the entire process. Now, those who come alert first at the base, once they move through the chakras, they'll reach a point where they too see that what happened from the crown down. So, I mean, theirs will grow to include it all too. Yeah. I don't.
But the ET contact started happening for you as well. With the awakening, you said I was getting the ET contact. So they're going to experience different things that they've never experienced before. So can I direct them towards you when I'm getting questions about Kundalini? Because I'm like, I only like to reference someone I know, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's what the drawing board is all about. And there's a section there for Kundalini and Kundalini questions, and just a platform for people to express what it is that they're experiencing. All of that's there. I mentor in a lot of things and do what we might broadly call spiritual counseling. And so this is working with people who are having a challenging time moving through the experiences that are newly coming to them. And yes, that's what I do. That's probably the largest part of what I do.
Brilliant.
At least it was the first. It's been here for the longest. The crystal stuff was the last thing to arrive, and there's more to arrive after the crystal work too. So yeah, we haven't seen the grand finale yet.
Tell me something about that's great. So spiritual counseling is a service that you offer, and for the people who know me and who when I do a podcast, sometimes you don't hear anything, and then sometimes people will just go, "Can I talk to you about that?" Or "Can I?" Or and if you can assist people spiritually, the minute I contacted you and the minute I saw you on the internet, I knew there was something. I knew I needed to contact you. But now that I'm in your presence, I've never felt like this before in the presence of somebody. I only get this when I'm on my own, going into my own inner dwelling. This when I have a feeling with you, and I'm very comfortable. So Biba's left. Biba doesn't need to be on guard. Biba doesn't need to get it right. Biba doesn't need to know anything. I now just get to be present in my soul essence with you. That's very unusual for me because I'm quite guarded.
Thank you.
Because of different energies, I'm very cautious. But with you, it's like Biba's just gone. She's meditating over there, and I just get to be in myself. So if I needed spiritual therapy, I would absolutely call you.
Please do.
It's safe and it's real and it's authentic. In a world that's in this 3D world, there's so much people offering so many things, and we all find what we need. So it's nice to know that you offer that, because we all can do our part in helping people come home to themselves, is what I call it, where you feel better about yourself.
Coming back into the awareness that consciousness is an open system.
Yeah.
And you and I and all of us have access to it all. And we can access it anytime. Anything more to it than we want. We aren't really in a prison. We are holding ourselves in our own constraint patterns apart from what we are. And at any point, we can do exactly what you just said. Let go. Enter the more. It's right here.
It is right here. I have to come out for a sec to ask a question. So just give me a sec. This is so funny. I love it. Vocals. What's happening? What's going on?
Oh, a lot.
What's happening? Are you able to? You may not want to. That might be your private things, but
I am an open system. There's nothing you can't ask me that I won't answer. Shoot.
do you love spaghetti bolognese?
I love pasta. Do you cook? I'm coming over.
You're more than welcome to come over. I won't put any animals in it. Tell me about what are you aware of at the moment with the next phase of your development?
Oh, okay. So yeah, that we're opening my vocal channel at this point. There are reasons that it has been healed off for the grand finale. I've worked my way through all of that so far through my whole process of awakening. Throughout the whole life, but certainly acceleratedly from the point of 2009 on. One of the very first things I realized is that I was very likely a channel, a speaker, as I call them. But it's something that didn't just come to me like everything else has always just come to me. So this was my golden ticket, you know. I had to go searching for it. And so it's been a huge process. It's been a huge process. There's a lot regarding my voice that has to be worked through. A lot of that is being worked through. Part of that is I'm trying to figure out how to say this to somebody who doesn't understand spiritual lineages and disciplines. So I'll just say that through most of my life, a main practice of mine is called Mona, and it's practicing silence. You don't speak. You don't use your voice. And it is a practice that's very dear to me, that has opened up almost everything that has opened up to me. In that silence, I am able to purely listen. I am able to have, through the course of my life, develop my telepathy to the point now that it is quite strong, and I am able to communicate telepathically with everyone and everything. So getting to the point where I now have to work using my voice is something in itself that I actually have to get through, because there is that preference for the silence. So the preference, the bias has to be gotten through. And I'm working on that. When I sit in meditation, that's like a me time, you know, but now my meditations are no longer for me, right? Now my meditations are to open up the portal and bring through what, you know, could help our world at this point in time. And so that's going to involve me speaking while in these deep meditative states, which is challenging. I've begun the practice. I came at it because I am an out-of-body experiencer, as in a Bob Monroe type fashion, as reporting from the out-of-body state more so than channeling, which is similar and can and will at a certain point get me to the point where the trance channeling begins, and it's not myself, Casey, who's doing the speaking, but a larger awareness. The one right here. Which has begun showing itself to me. So yeah, it's a lion being, Alarak, He's given that name, Alarok of the electric blue light. Yeah, I think there's an association.
Whoa!
He wears clothing, and through the seams of his clothing, electric blue light emanates. Yeah, he's incredible. He's incredible. So yeah, strong connection with the felines, but there's such a strong connection with so many of the beings. I really can't say who it is that will come through first, but it will be exciting to see. I'm having a good time, living through it and moving through the process, and with practice and with patience, it will happen this year or next, but probably this year. I'm hoping this year. And that will bring an income stream to our platform too, which my platform, consciousnessexploration.com. The group is called the Galactic Travel Channel. Quite aptly, we feel, is an unconditional platform. So the spiritual counseling, the OBE mentoring, any of the mentoring, the crystal work, the rendering work, but all of that is unconditional. We don't apply a charge to it. But we're hoping that the one-on-one, at least vocal channeling, will bring an income stream to this, to where I'm not having to work outside jobs on top of trying to do all of this, which at my age is becoming difficult. It's becoming a thing. So hopefully that will open a supportive stream to the whole thing as well, and we can go much further with this.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That is so exciting. So on so many levels, like the electric blue line being called, what's his name? I can feel him. He's like, whoa.
Well, he has electric blue light. He himself is normal colored, golden haired colored. But yeah, he exudes this electric blue light. I mean, it's really electric blue. There's like white, ice blue, and electric blue, like sort of all together in a spectrum. It's really beautiful.
When my mum got cancer, right? So I said, get up those stairs. We're doing a QHHT. Let's find out what's going on with your soul. So she goes up the stairs and she says, I'm so tired. So she goes into the quantum healing, and I actually nearly lost her. I thought she actually was going to pass away but I realized that my brother wouldn't, I just would be weird if that happened in a quantum healing session, like with my mom. But anyway, she went and she says, I'm at the gates of heaven. So I was like, okay, describe it to me. She says, God is here and he's just looking at me. And I says, okay. So she was doing her thing. She was in her private space with him. And then she says, then the door blew open in the room. The door blew open and there was thunder and lightning outside. And then she said, oh, there's an electric blue being here and he's healing me. And I thought, wow, it's so beautiful when we can connect to what is.
When we glimpse into the more that actually is happening right here, right now, it's phenomenal. And I know it's impactful on our central nervous system at first, but it's so important to make our way through that fear. It's not meant to be shocking for an extended length of time. So, and we have to be very aware of those mental processes and judgments that hold us in those fear patterns for longer than necessary. It only really needs to last an instant, and an instant can, like it was in my case, be 2 years working through that initial shock. I mean, that is quite rapidly for something as broad as what was happening with me. I mean, I was getting suctioned out of my body, being brought on board craft, thrown onto a table, and had things shoved up my nose. So it was shocking. And every day, every night. It was for 4 years. So if I can do that, I think that almost anybody on the planet can. And I did that for us all. Everything that every one of us does is for us all, whether we realize it or not. But when we do realize it, boy, does it have a power that just doesn't seem to be quite there when we don't. We just have that extra, what is it? What is it? Vibrancy, willingness, openness, to reach out to others, to assist them through, what they're moving through, in a way that actually can and does help, because a lot of times we do this, but we do it in a way that isn't in isn't going to help. Because,
Mhm.
but yeah, maybe that's what it is. It lets us get into that awareness of the avenues through which to actually reach someone through. And yeah, when that starts to happen, when our connections start to be felt with more and more of us, I mean, it really is an incredible thing to experience, and certainly not to be afraid of. I understand the other, again, is impactful, but what it is doing, the process that it is moving us through is reconnection. It's the process of reconnection.
Yeah, reconnection. And when we look at your images and you have the slideshows on your YouTube channel and making eye contact, some of them where you just fall in love and some you're like, whoa. And it's just allowing that whoa to settle in. And the
Yeah.
next one and the next one, like your work does that. Your work enables us to
And don't blink.
acclimatize or don't blink. Okay.
Don't blink. Notice the whoa, notice the pulling back, but then look to see what the fear is. Because what you're pulling back from is your own thought, not them. It was your own thought came first. It is
That's right.
always thought, manifestation of thought in that order, always. So what is the thought that you're having? And identify that thought. Oh, wow, I was thinking yada, yada, da. All right, is it true? I don't know. And go back to looking.
Beautiful.
Really don't push yourself past your limits. Don't shove yourself. You know what I mean? But gently work through, those thicknesses that you can, to the degree that you can. Always, like, don't always be pulling back and,
Yeah.
hiding from yourself. Because that's what pulling back is. It's just hiding from yourself.
Yeah, don't do that. I love that. I often say to my clients, don't abandon yourself. Just stop, 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 stop. It's not your dad who abandoned you. You keep abandoning yourself by giving up on yourself. Keep going and love who you are in all of it. Love the fact that it can be a bit or you want more of it. And I could talk to you for eternity. I really could. You've so much to offer, Casey Claar. You've so much to offer, and the communication. I look forward to how you deliver that. Because I love your delivery of the material. Do you put everything together yourself? Do you create all of the content? Do you put everything together?
Yeah, right now I'm a one-man show, and it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a
Hopefully
lot, I
at
can
some point in the
imagine.
past, when we do open an income stream to this, there are ways to support the platform, I will say, but they're unconditional, and they're like, I put out what I do unconditionally. There's no charge, there's no paywalls. And then it's unconditional on everybody else's part also, to either support the work that it's being done so that we can do more, or not. And so the Patreon is there and people can become Patreons, but that's up to you. There's no paywall there at our Patreon. Everything is just posted publicly. And that the same goes for everything. But once that stream is open, it will allow us to do so much more. I forgot where I was already going with that. You can tell how much I dislike speaking of that subject. I just know that I need to
I
make
know.
it
I know. Yeah,
so,
but you're dedicated to this. This is your life and you have to live as well. And so when you, with the readings or however when you offer one-to-one or when people want to get the communication, that's a beautiful offering. That is a nice exchange, because I wanted to stop working out in a certain way, and I wanted to just to rely on myself and my own skill set and not have to rely on a boss or a staff. Like, I just wanted to be self-reliant, and I did that with the healing, the quantum healing. And I'm not the healer, which is my favorite part. I'm not the healer. I actually just get to witness the person healing themselves, and just to watch that, and how they when they realize that's what they're doing. To me, that's the yeah, you see, do you see? Do you just see that you are the answer to everything you've been looking for?
yeah, but like with you, like there's so much to the work. We can't always do 100% of it, or people get left out of the equation, right? Because there's only so many minutes in the day. But the avenue of support will open it to where somebody else can process the videos. And you can extend that stream of support to them. So, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I could bring in people to help keep the forum board more active and to welcome everybody new that come. I wouldn't have to get there myself to do 100% of it all myself, all by myself. Same thing with the videos. I could, an income stream would help me extend that income stream to somebody who can assist with that, so it can work its way into a larger structure. And I am beginning to see that. And I do want that. And I want as many people to who want to be able to come on board this ship and participate in the various different ways. The largest of which is forming a collective of people who are all walking the spiritual path in this life and having spiritual graduations, and having the skills awakened in them. Our platform is called the Galactic Travel Channel because it's all of us. There is no head to it. I'm not a head to the Galactic Travel Channel. It's all of us. And everyone, we open up on the forum board, we open up like on Facebook, how you have your own personal page there. We open up entire forums for each and every person. So to kind of encourage people off of social media and more back into real practice, study, and application, and not just sort of scrolling and, wasting time.
Yeah,
There's
brilliant.
much more important things to be doing. And so, yeah, this can open out in so many different ways. And it's fun to just think of how many ways and how many people it could support. And I think that it is worthy of supporting. But again, the central teaching and the whole structure is re-educating everyone on what the unconditional structure is. And I do trust you. I trust everyone in the world. If what we're doing and what this is meant to be in the world, people will magically come and support it, all on their own. And it won't be because I said you have to do that or I won't do this for you. See, that just brings the whole thing down. That no fun at all. No fun at all. It's much more fun trusting and wondering when it's going to happen. And how will they make it happen? How will you tickle me yet again? You know what I mean? So that's what brings in the joy bubbles and helps, lets me work with something that's new. It's like, well, how will I do this? And so that wakes up your brain and it wakes up your whole system. And it helps draw to you, other people who are working in a like way. Carla Ruckert and the three that did the raw material, also unconditional. All of their stuff is just out and we come across each other and we're just like wowed by them. I mean, because what they brought through shines so much brighter, than things that were brought through in a conditional way and to a grander degree, and they last longer. They're here on our planet for hundreds and if not thousands of years. They make it through history. And that's what I want. I want something much bigger than that. Just going to disappear when I'm no longer here in the body. I want something that'll still be here for third grade students that come in on the wave behind us. And so it's big. It's so much bigger than what it looks like or that we realize. And it's taken me decades to begin to realize the scope, and the full scope I still haven't realized, but the scope that I have brought myself into is just phenomenal. And it's a wonderful energy to live a life in. Just wonderful. It's wonder.
You're a
wonder. Living in a pure state of wonder in as many ways as you can possibly imagine. And this is an exceptional one because it's fun because it involves the ETs.
Yeah, that's always fun.
That's the area that we have the most challenge through, right there where 3D meets 4D. Where it's no longer just our earth peoples, but very, very, very different beings. So that's the challenging juncture. Where the challenges are, that's where the excitement is.
Yeah, I would totally and utterly it's captivated my attention, so I'm just in. Because in January it was like change the direction of your podcast from spiritual awakenings to contact, because there's just display a different version of what contact is. And that's the kind of guidance I was given. So I was like, okay, so that's why the likes of yourselves come into my reality then. It
Yeah,
just,
you're at that
that's the
juncture
fun
point.
bubbles. Yeah, exactly.
You're at that
So will you,
juncture. Yeah.
I am, I seem
It's
to be
such
at
an
it a lot.
exciting juncture point. It's such an exciting one. Because it does lead to live contact. We're not going to be gazing at picture frames, for you will shift out of Earth space and into another environment where that being actually is through the practice of Tritak on these frames. It's one way to do it. Meditation is, of course, but this is what this is, Tritak, focused gazing is bringing, your brainwaves into a meditative structure.
Exactly.
Frequency structure.
Yeah, that's the science. You see, one thing you said when I did the last interview with Judy, we were saying like how different people, they're not able to seem to just bridge the gap between the worlds. And we couldn't figure out what it was, whether it's a soul contract that they won't. But then you come along and I watch a video and you're like, it's just brainwaves.
It's
It's
brainwave.
brainwave structures. It's like, that's it. That's it. It's just brain.
See, it's the other too, but that's a more coarse description of what it is. And you can go into that to see a finer degree of what it is. And you can just keep doing that, going in and breaking it open and going in and breaking it open until you see the fundamental thing that's lying at the center of it all. Yeah. Frequency and vibration.
Yeah,
And when you're
really
dealing
cool.
with something that's that general, like who's afraid when they hear frequency? Who's afraid when you hear vibration? Some people that have had OBEs maybe, but but essentially those aren't words that we're afraid of, right? But when you think, oh, I made a soul contract, then you think, well, there's nothing I can do then, so I'll just put it over here while I go about life. See, that's a way to postpone it a bit further. Yeah. It's like, so if I were to say that, I would break it open for the person just to show that's just the outside of the thing, and let them see that they can use their mind to see inside of that just a little bit more and get more information.
Like you do with the crystal.
And our dream state and everything, our connections with one another.
Yeah, lovely. Lovely. So don't look at it like linear contract, spiritual contract. Look at it multidimensionally, like mold it into what you want it to be using your brain waves. Brain waves, how do I do that? You just listen to Casey.
Shifting your brainwaves is so easy because it's just a matter of focusing. You focus your attention in a way that will shift your brainwaves. So most people's attention is not focused. It's quite scattered and it's working on a lot of different things. Yeah. So you focus it, you hold the focus, and you don't let anything penetrate the focus. And you get really good at that. I mean, you begin to feel really satisfied with yourself when you get really good at this, because it's like things can be coming at you from every angle and you are just completely unaffected. You're focused on your own point of focus. And you're not agreeing to somebody else's who's saying, oh, this is a prison planet, or, oh, this guy is over there doing something evil. It's never somebody else, and what's going on out there is never the focus. It's
not even there.
That's the mirror.
It's just not even,
that's the mirror. Right. What it's reflecting is here. So yeah, you get really good at knowing that. And once you're clear, self is all there is. Self is the center point. Self is the same word as source. Source is all there is. Source is oneness. Source is another word for consciousness. Consciousness is one. It's a one consciousness within which is appearing everyone and everything, but within which, and as above, so below, right? It's the same with us. It's in which everything is happening. Thought creates things. Thought, manifestation of thought into the experiences we intersect with. So we have a thought, and then the field lets us intersect with that thought. And we get to experience it and figure out why the heck we wanted to experience that, and all of that. But always thought first. So what was my thought? again, when I pulled back from the being, or I'm saying something like, oh, this is a prison planet. That's a really popular one right now. I went through a process of trying to dismantle that over the past year, to see, what I could get through there. I won't go into that. We've already been talking, Biba, for a couple hours.
I know, we got to
Does
go
it
now.
does it seem that long? And like you said,
No way. We've been talking a long time.
we
It's
can,
nearly 10 o'clock here.
I know, I'm so sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry actually at all. I talked to you. I actually got to go and rescue a kitten very soon. I'm on a 3-day quest here to rescue this kitten in a dumpster.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah, well, bless him. I'll get him. I will get him. He's got to move from the dimension of being feral to being not so feral.
Yeah.
And that just takes
Person.
me harmonizing my frequency in his company. So he's not reading me.
Yeah.
He's reading me. He's reading that I'm nervous. So he's nervous. So I'm like, I just need to chill, go into myself. Casey, thank you so much.
Mm.
Thank you
Thank you
so,
for having
so
me.
much. You'll be back, won't you?
I will anytime you wish.
Yeah.
And
Like
I'm right there on the
can't wait.
board, and I hope you stay there with us. And we've really enjoyed having you over.
Yeah,
And
I'm brand new on the board. I love it.
And I don't know if you want to put this in the upload, but I really appreciate you reaching out and requesting the rendering. And I look forward to going into the crystal for you. Again, your beings are right here and they're coming. Yeah, they want to come through my heart. So it's like almost feels like they're bursting out. So I look forward to seeing who this is. And yeah, we'll get that out
Yeah.
to you just as soon as we can.
Thank you so much. I'm very much looking forward to seeing the beings that come through. And yeah, I'm actually just very excited about that. I'm almost 50, so that's my 50th birthday present to myself. It's like,
Oh,
yay.
good. What
Yeah.
a great
So
gift.
yeah, right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for all of it.
Mm.
Till next time.
Good night, Viva.
Good night.